The stars over Zalara Prime shone like distant jewels, but to the Zalari people their beauty no longer gave comfort. Across the skies, the faint red glimmers of approaching warships brought only fear. The Draxan swarm had been spotted at the edge of their system, their fleets multiplying like shadows on the horizon. Stories traveled faster than light, stories of entire colonies stripped bare, cities turned into feeding grounds, and no survivors left to mourn. The Zalari were not a warrior race. Their people had spent thousands of years building gardens, creating art, and raising shining towers of crystal and glass. They lived in peace and traded knowledge with other star-faring species. They believed in logic, cooperation, and diplomacy, but none of those things could stop the Draxan. And so the Council of Elders made a choice they had not made in centuries. They sent out a plea for help. The message went across the galaxy. We are the Zalari. Our world is under attack. We beg for aid against the Draxan swarm. Whoever hears this, come, save us, and we will owe you more than words can say. The message repeated again and again on every frequency and every trade tongue. Then silence. The Zalari waited, hearts heavy as they looked to the stars. Surely the noble warriors of the galaxy would answer. Surely the mighty empires would not let a peaceful world burn. Days passed. The council gathered every morning to review reports. Have the Aryan legions answered? An elder asked. No. Have the Delcari fleet sent word? No. What of the Elthari knights? No response. Each answer was the same. The great civilizations, the ones who spoke proudly of honor and justice in times of peace, now turned their eyes away. To fight the swarm meant risk. To fight the swarm meant death. None were willing. Hope began to fade. Then one morning, the orbital stations detected ships on approach. They were not sleek and silver like Elthari cruisers. They were not massive and ordered like Aryan battleships. No, these ships looked wrong. The first ship was patched with plates of different colors like a scarred beast covered in wounds. Its engines sputtered unevenly as if they were held together by stubbornness alone. The second ship bristled with weapons of many designs, none of them uniform, like a child's toy chest emptied and glued together. The third was small but radiated an aura of raw aggression, its very hull painted with teeth. The Zalari defense officers stared at the monitors in disbelief. What are these? Who dares bring such broken machines into our skies? One officer whispered the name the galaxy used in hushed voices. Humans. The word carried weight, and not the kind the Zalari desired. In the long records of interstellar politics, humans were a species spoken of with both awe and suspicion. They were new to the stars, unrefined and unpredictable. They lacked the elegance of older races. Where others built perfect fleets, humans built ships that looked like floating scrapyards. Where others prized diplomacy, humans were quick to argue, quicker to fight. The galaxy called them reckless, savage, monsters, and yet here they were, answering a call no one else dared to touch. The Council of Elders gathered in the great crystalline chamber of Zalara Prime, their luminous robes flowing as they debated. Elder Rhinal, oldest among them, gazed at the hologram of the human fleet. These are not the allies we hoped for, he said softly. Perhaps it is better than nothing, said Elder Vera, though her voice trembled. They came when no one else did. Do you not remember the stories? Another elder hissed. The humans destroyed their own world once, fighting among themselves. They spread wherever they go, taking, consuming, never asking permission. To invite them here is to invite wolves into our home. But wolves still bite the enemy, Vera replied. The chamber grew silent. In truth, they were desperate. No other choice remained. On the landing fields outside Zalara's capital, a human ship descended with a roar of thrusters. Dust and smoke filled the air. Zalari citizens gathered at a distance, curious yet fearful, their delicate eyes blinking at the harsh floodlights. The ship's hatch hissed open. From within emerged figures in thick armor, scarred and mismatched like their ships. Their helmets were painted with symbols, some crude, some beautiful. Their weapons hung at their sides, heavy and brutal compared to the slender tools the Zalari guards carried. At their front walked a man with sharp eyes and a steady stride. His face bore lines of age, but his movement spoke of strength. He carried no shield, only a rifle slung across his back. When he spoke, his voice was low, steady, and unyielding. I am Captain Marcus Hale, Earth Union Marines, he said. You called for help. We answered. The translator hummed, turning his rough words into the flowing language of the Zalari. The gathered crowd shivered at the sound. His tone carried no elegance, only iron. Elder Reinl stepped forward cautiously. You are humans. Marcus tilted his head, a half-smile touching his lips. That's what they call us, the elder hesitated. Do you know what the galaxy says of your kind? I've heard worse, Marcus replied. The elder drew in a breath, his crystal pendant catching the sun. They say you are reckless. They say you are cruel. They say you are monsters. Marcus's smile vanished. He met the elder's gaze, his eyes steady. Good. Then maybe the swarm will finally meet something worse than itself. The days that followed were uneasy. The humans set up camps near the Zalari capital, their machines noisy, their tools sparking, their laughter echoing through the air. To the Zalari, who valued harmony and calm, the humans were a storm. They argued with each other loudly, only to laugh moments later. They drank strange liquids that made them sing through the night. They trained in ways that seemed chaotic, sparring, wrestling, firing weapons at crude targets until the fields were scarred. The Zalari watched from a distance, whispering among themselves. Were these truly their saviors? Yet small details stood out. When Zalari children wandered too close to the camp, humans did not chase them away. Instead, they showed them tools, made little machines dance for them, even shared food. When a Zalari worker stumbled while carrying supplies, a massive human soldier rushed to help, lifting the load as if it weighed nothing. The humans were loud. They were strange, but perhaps not cruel. Still, doubt remained. One night, Elder Vera walked through the human camp, her curiosity overcoming her fear. She found Marcus sitting near a fire, staring into the flames. His armor rested beside him, scarred and burned. You should not sit alone, she said softly. I'm never alone, Marcus answered, tapping his chest. Memories keep me company. She studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the fire. Why did you come here? Why did your people answer when no one else did? Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he said, because someone had to. You sent out a call for help. That's all that mattered. Vera frowned. But you risk your lives. The swarm destroys everything it touches. You could die here. Marcus looked at her calmly. Better us than you. The elder felt her throat tighten. For a moment she saw not a monster but a man carrying a burden willingly. The Zalari had believed they had weeks before the Draxan reached their world. But on the third dawn after the humans landed, alarms echoed through the capital, the sky filled with red flashes as defense satellites reported enemy scouts tearing through the outer rim. In the council chamber, panic broke. They are faster than our records claimed. Elder Reinl cried, his crystal staff trembling in his hand. Our defense fleets are not prepared. Our outer colonies, another elder began. But his voice failed as the holographic map showed Draxan ships already piercing deep into their territory. At that moment, a new voice cut through the chaos. Marcus Hale, the human captain, stood with his arms crossed, watching the map with calm eyes. His voice was deep, steady, like stone cutting through water. Panic doesn't stop enemies, he said. Fighting does. Give us coordinates. We'll meet them. The elders stared at him aghast. Meet them? You mean to rush into battle against the swarm? Do you not know their reputation? Marcus allowed himself a small, humorless smile. Do you know ours? The human fleet launched before the Zalari even finished their arguments. Their ships roared into the skies, patched hulls gleaming under the rising sun. Engines screamed as though daring the universe to keep up. To the Zalari citizens watching from below, the sight was terrifying. Where other fleets moved in perfect lines, humans broke formation constantly, darting, twisting, improvising. Their ships looked like predators circling prey, unpredictable, dangerous, hungry. They do not look like soldiers, a Zalari child whispered, clutching his mother's hand. They look like beasts. And in a way, he was right. The first engagement took place near the mining moon of Zeldara, a fragile outpost where thousands of Zalari worked to gather crystals vital for their technology. The swarm scouts arrived first, sleek, organic-looking ships that pulsed with sickly green light. They moved in silence, coordinated as if one mind guided them all. The Zalari defenders panicked. Their ships were designed for patrol, not war. They broke formation at the first wave, leaving holes in their defense. The swarm poured through, and then the humans arrived. The human ships did not hesitate. They fell on the swarm like wolves on prey, their weapons blazing in chaotic bursts. One ship rammed straight through a Draxan vessel, tearing its own hull open in the process, but firing all weapons until both ships exploded together. Another spiraled around enemy fire, leaving trails of counter-missiles in every direction. To the Zalari commanders watching from the safety of orbit, it looked like madness. "They do not fight with discipline," one cried. "They fight like they wish to die." But Elder Vera, watching with sharp eyes, whispered, "No, they fight like they refuse to let others die." On the surface of Zeldara, chaos spread. Draxan boarding craft slammed into mining stations, their claw-like doors opening to release swarms of insectoid warriors. The Zalari workers screamed and fled, unarmed, untrained. But then came the humans. Armored soldiers stormed into the corridors, weapons blazing. Their rifles thundered with brutal efficiency. Where ammunition ran low, they drew blades, clubs, even pipes torn from the walls. The Draxan fought with claws and acid, but the humans met them with sheer ferocity, roaring as they cut their way through. Private Jackson, a young soldier, was seen wrestling a Draxan twice his size, shoving it against a bulkhead until his knife found its throat. Sergeant Alvarez smashed through another wave with nothing but a makeshift flamethrower, crafted from fuel tanks lying in the station's storage. The Zalari who hid in the shadows watched in shock. These humans bled, burned, and screamed, yet not one of them abandoned their posts. Every human squad fought tooth and nail, dragging civilians behind them, shouting at them to run while they stood against the tide. At one point, an entire corridor collapsed from enemy fire, sealing off an escape route. Instead of retreating, a group of humans linked arms and formed a living wall, holding back the swarm long enough for dozens of Zalari children to slip through a maintenance tunnel. Not one of those soldiers survived, but the children did. When news reached the council, Elder Reinald's voice cracked. "Monsters, do not bleed for strangers." Hours later, the humans pushed the swarm off the mining moon. Fires burned, smoke rose into the thin sky, and the dead lay across the corridors. But the survivors walked free, alive only because the humans refused to let them fall. In the aftermath, Zalari civilians approached their strange saviors cautiously. One young girl, her crystal skin cracked from debris, looked up at Marcus Hale as he passed through the wreckage. "Why did you save us?" she asked, her voice trembling. Marcus paused. He knelt, his battle-worn armor creaking. His face was smeared with soot and blood, but his eyes were steady. "Because you needed saving," he said simply. Then he rose and walked on. The girl whispered to her mother, "They are not monsters. They are guardians." Despite this, unease still spread among the Zalari leadership. After the victory, they gathered in the council chamber, their voices sharp. "They are dangerous," one elder insisted. "Yes, they fought the swarm, but did you see their methods? Brutal, reckless, uncontrolled. They sacrifice themselves as if life means nothing. If they fight like this for us, how will they behave when the war ends?" Another argued, "We cannot deny the results. They saved Zeldara. Without them, the swarm would be mining our bones already." Elder Vera raised her voice. "I walked among them. They are loud, yes. Wild, yes. But I saw how they treat our children, how they protect every civilian as if it were their own. Does that sound like monsters to you?" Silence followed. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances, the old fear battling against new respect. That night, Marcus Hale gathered his soldiers around a fire in the human camp. Some laughed, some nursed wounds, others sat in silence, staring into the flames. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. "You did well," he said. His voice carried no grandeur, no ceremony, just quiet pride. "You kept them safe. That's all that matters." Private Jackson, his arm bandaged, muttered, "They still look at us like we're beasts, Captain." Marcus took a long breath. "Maybe we are. But better beasts on their side than on the swarms." The soldiers nodded, weary but resolute. Above them the stars glimmered coldly. Somewhere beyond, the swarm gathered strength. The humans knew this battle was only the beginning. But for the first time, the Zalari people began to look at them not as monsters, but as a wall of fire standing between them and extinction. And deep in their hearts, a dangerous seed of hope began to grow. Solara's orbit shimmered with the glow of countless warships, but even with the humans' help, the enemy pressed closer. The swarm's tendrils reached into every colony, devouring resources, burning cities, and leaving nothing behind. The Zalari fleet fought valiantly, their sleek ships moving in precise formations, their weapons firing with elegant coordination, but it was not enough. Every day brought new reports of destruction, and the council grew desperate. In the council chamber, Elder Reinald pounded his staff against the crystal floor. "We will not survive much longer. The swarm overwhelms us at every turn. Our fleets are insufficient, our defense is failing." Elder Vera, standing beside him, placed a hand gently on his arm. "There is hope. Humans fight differently than we do. Perhaps it is time we trust their instincts." Reinald shook his head. "Instincts are not enough. They are reckless. They risk themselves in ways that will doom us all." At that moment, a transmission came through from Marcus Hale. His voice, calm and steady, echoed across the chamber. "We need a plan, one that the swarm will not expect, one that requires courage beyond caution. And yes," he added with a faint smirk, "it will be dangerous." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Dangerous? That was a human understatement. Marcus stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang, staring at the holographic display of the swarm's core fleet. Its ships were massive, organic, pulsating with green light. The swarm moved with terrifying coordination, as though each vessel was a nerve ending in a single monstrous body. Destroying even one would only slow the swarm temporarily. He turned to his officers, his voice low and sharp. "This isn't about holding the line. That's already failed. We're going to hit them at the heart." Lieutenant Reyes, a wiry young soldier, frowned. "Captain, you mean inside their command ship?" "That's suicide," Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's exactly what I mean." A murmur ran through the room. The human soldiers had fought hard and lost comrades, yet none balked at his plan. They had come to Zalera knowing the odds were against them, and each had accepted the risk. Private Jackson leaned forward. "Then let's make sure it counts." Marcus allowed a small smile. "That's the spirit." Meanwhile, on the surface of Zalara Prime, civilians and soldiers alike prepared for the coming attack. Evacuation efforts had begun in earnest, but many refused to leave entirely, determined to see their planet through the storm. The humans worked alongside the Zalari, sharing techniques for fortifications, distributing supplies, and teaching basic combat maneuvers. The aliens watched in awe as the humans transformed their defenses, creating improvised barricades, automated traps, and even flamethrowers made from local materials. The humans were messy, loud, and unorthodox, but they were effective. One young Zalari named Lyra, barely 16, watched them with wide eyes. She had always dreamed of exploring the stars, yet she had never imagined standing beside such beings. When she saw a group of human soldiers lifting a massive generator to block a hallway, she gasped. "How can they do that?" "It's impossible." A human beside her laughed. "Nothing's impossible if you don't care about getting hurt." Lyra frowned, uncertain if she admired them or feared them. Perhaps both. The night before the counterattack, Marcus called his soldiers together. The mood was somber. Injuries, exhaustion, and the weight of imminent death hung heavy in the air. Yet there was no fear, only resolve. He looked at each of them in turn. "Tomorrow we go into the swarm's heart. We may not all make it back, but if we succeed, we give every Zalari alive a chance to live another day. You fight for them. You fight for yourselves. You fight because it is right, not because it is safe." The soldiers nodded. Their faces were grim, but their eyes shone with determination. Private Jackson whispered almost to himself, "If this is what being human means, then I am proud to be one." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good. Then let's make sure the galaxy remembers it." At dawn, the human fleet launched. The Zalari watched from orbit, holding their breath. Every human ship moved with a reckless precision, weaving through enemy fire, dodging Drax and tendrils that would have shredded even the most advanced Zalari vessels. Explosions erupted across the battlefield as humans rammed, spun, and blasted their way toward the swarm's central command vessel. Smoke, fire, and green energy lit the skies. It was chaotic, terrifying, and mesmerizing. Aboard the Iron Fang, Marcus barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Reyes, hit the porthole with everything we have." "Jackson, prepare the boarding pods. We go in fast, in and out, and no hesitation. Move." The pods launched, slicing through space like fiery arrows. They hit the surface of the command ship with a violent crash, breaching its defenses. Inside, the Draxan screamed in alien fury, but the humans pressed forward, cutting through corridors with unmatched ferocity. Every step was dangerous. Hull breaches sent air rushing into space, forcing soldiers to cling to walls. Acid sprayed from alien weapons, melting metal and scorching flesh. Yet the humans moved as one, their training, instincts, and sheer determination carrying them forward. They were monsters in the way the galaxy feared, but monsters that fought for life, not death. In one corridor, Private Jackson and a squad encountered a massive Draxan Guardian. Its claws could crush a human in a single blow. Its eyes glowed with hatred. The humans hesitated only a fraction of a second before charging. They used every weapon available: blades, fire, explosives, even raw strength. When the creature lunged, Jackson leaped, striking at its joint with a blade, then yanked it off balance. Sergeant Alvarez followed, driving a makeshift pike into its chest. The creature fell, shaking the walls. The squad pressed on, battered but victorious. The Zalari monitoring the attack from orbit were stunned. This was not fighting. It was a display of raw courage, strength, and determination that transcended fear. Elder Vera, watching the battle unfold, whispered, Perhaps monsters are exactly what we need." Finally, they reached the heart of the Draxan command ship. Its core pulsed with sickly green energy, a throbbing mass of alien intelligence. Destroying it would collapse the swarm's coordination, but the humans knew it would not be easy. Marcus turned to his remaining soldiers. "Set the charges. Precision is not required. Destruction is." They worked quickly, planting explosives across the ship's core. Every second brought the threat of discovery. Draxan patrols roamed the corridors, their claws clicking against metal floors. Humans fought, pushed, and held them off, refusing to retreat. When the last charge was set, Marcus glanced at his team. "Time to leave, move." The alarms blared. The swarm was aware of the breach. Corridors exploded in green light as humans fought their way back to the pods. Each step was a race against death. Soldiers fell, but others took their place, dragging comrades, shielding civilians, covering escape routes. Finally, they reached the pods and launched into space. The Iron Fang fired one final volley, ensuring the path was clear. The charges detonated. The core of the command ship erupted in green fire, sending shockwaves that tore through the fleet. The swarm convulsed in chaos. Ships collided. Control was lost, and the tide turned in favor of the Zalari and their human allies. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield was silent. The humans returned battered, exhausted, and reduced in numbers, but victorious. The Draxan swarm had been shattered, at least temporarily. On Zalara Prime, citizens gathered to watch the human survivors land. They were scarred, burned, and covered in grime, yet they stood tall, weapons still in hand. To the Zalari, they no longer seemed like monsters. They were heroes. Elder Rhinal, who had doubted them at first, stepped forward. His voice trembled as he spoke to Marcus Hale. You risked everything for us. I do not know how to thank you." Marcus shook his head. "You don't need to. We fight because it is right. Not because it is easy. Not because it is safe. That is what we do." Vera, standing beside him, nodded. "Then you have shown us what humans truly are. Not monsters, but guardians. Fierce, fearless, and willing to bleed so others may live." Marcus allowed himself a small smile, though exhaustion weighed heavy on him. "Good. Then let's make sure the galaxy sees it too." The Zalari began to cheer, their voices rising in the air. They had been saved by beings they had feared, and now that fear had transformed into awe, gratitude, and respect. And above the shattered battlefield, somewhere among the stars, the Draxan would remember the monsters of Earth, not as recklessness, but as wrath, courage, and unwavering resolve. The turning point had come. Humanity had proven once again that sometimes the galaxy's monsters were exactly what the universe needed to survive. The smoke of battle still hung over Zalara Prime like a dark, stubborn fog. Fires burned across distant cities, and the air smelled of scorched metal and ozone. But for the first time in months, the people of Zalara dared to breathe without immediate fear. The Draxan swarm had been broken, its command shattered, its forces scattered into disorganized fragments. Yet the cost had been high. Zalari ships, beautiful and precise, floated among the wreckage, hulls cracked and weapons damaged. The humans returned as well, battered, scorched, and missing numbers. The survivors walked with the slow, deliberate steps of those who had faced death and refused to be claimed. Blood, soot, and sweat marked every face, yet each human bore the unmistakable aura of triumph. To the Zalari, they were no longer the galaxy's feared monsters. They were champions and perhaps something greater. Captain Marcus Hale surveyed the aftermath from the bridge of the Iron Fang, the flagship of the human fleet. His shoulders were stiff with fatigue and a thin line of soot streaked his face. Around him, the remaining soldiers cleaned weapons, treated wounds, and began organizing repairs. They had survived horrors most could not imagine, and yet they carried on, calm, orderly, and undaunted. Lieutenant Reyes approached, his uniform scorched, but his eyes bright. "Captain, the Zilari are trying to get us medical support supplies. Even food." Marcus shook his head. "No, let them do what they can. We've done our part." He paused, eyes fixed on the horizon. "The Draxen will return. But for now, they know the humans do not forgive." Reyes nodded. "They call us monsters, Captain. Do you think they still see it that way?" Marcus allowed himself a faint smile. "Let them. Better they fear us than the swarm." On the surface, the Zilari moved cautiously among the ruins, helping to rebuild and assess the damage. Everywhere they went, the humans followed. Sometimes silently, sometimes offering a hand, always keeping watch. Elder Vera walked among them, her glowing eyes studying these creatures that had so recently seemed terrifying. She approached Marcus as he helped a young Zilari repair a broken water conduit. "I have watched your people closely," she said. "You are remarkable. I cannot understand why the galaxy fears you so much." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and looked at her, tired but unwavering. Fear is easier than understanding. We are loud, we are brutal, and yes, we are monsters if someone only looks at the surface. But those who fight with us see a different side. Courage, loyalty, sacrifice. That is what humans are. Vera studied him. For the first time, she realized the word monster had changed meaning in her mind. It no longer meant cruelty or recklessness. It meant strength, determination, and protection of others, even at a terrible personal cost. "I have seen courage before," she whispered, "but nothing like this." Marcus allowed a small, tired grin. "It's called survival, and caring about someone other than yourself." In the capital, citizens gathered to celebrate and honor the humans. Songs were sung, but not the quiet, formal melodies the Zilari usually preferred. These were loud, rhythmic, and filled with energy. Almost chaotic, yet vibrant, just like the humans themselves. Children ran up to touch the soldiers' arms, fascinated by their scars and armor. The humans laughed, lifted children onto shoulders, and answered questions with patience and kindness. Even the elders, previously skeptical, could not deny the truth. Humans were different, yes. Loud, reckless, and dangerous. But they were defenders, fighters for life, and champions of the weak. Elder Reinl stood on a balcony overlooking the celebration. "I thought I understood monsters," he murmured to Vera. "But these are monsters I could never have imagined. They fight for others, not for themselves. They bleed so we may live." Vera nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is the true measure of a species. Not their history, but their actions when it matters most." The elder smiled faintly. "Then let it be remembered. Humans are monsters no more, they are heroes." Meanwhile, the remaining humans did not rest. Repairs were underway on the fleet, and scouts were sent into the shattered remnants of the Draxen forces. Every survivor knew the enemy might return, seeking revenge for its lost command. The humans trained, patched their wounds, and organized defenses, refusing to be caught unprepared. Even in quiet moments, they taught the Zilari what they could: techniques for rapid repair, methods of improvisation under pressure, and strategies for battlefield awareness. They did not lecture or demand obedience. They simply demonstrated, sharing knowledge born from centuries of survival and battle. Young Lyra, the Zilari girl who had watched the humans on Zeldara, ran to Marcus as he oversaw a repair crew. "Captain Hale," she said, "will they come back?" Marcus crouched to her height, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Yes, but don't be afraid. We'll be ready, and so will your people. You've seen what courage looks like. You've seen it with your own eyes." She nodded solemnly. "I will remember." "That's good," Marcus replied, "because courage spreads faster than fear." Over the following weeks, Zilara slowly healed. The humans remained by their side, often silent, sometimes laughing, always vigilant. The planet that had once felt helpless now buzzed with energy, caution mixed with hope. Humans and Zilari worked side by side, building stronger defenses, sharing stories, and learning from one another. The galaxy took notice. Reports of the human intervention spread like wildfire, Other races who had dismissed the Zalari's plea now paused to reconsider the humans' reputation. The stories were consistent, reckless, yes, but fiercely protective, loyal to life, willing to face death for strangers. Even the words monster began to change meaning. It was no longer just a creature to fear. Now it could describe courage, wrath against oppressors, and the unstoppable determination to protect others. One evening, as the twin moons of Zalara rose in the sky, Marcus walked along a ridge overlooking the capital. Fires still burned below, illuminating the rebuilding efforts, casting long shadows across streets that would soon be bustling with life again. Vera joined him silently. "You have changed how we see humans," she said softly. "Not only our people, but perhaps the entire galaxy." Marcus nodded. "It's simple. You send a call for help. Someone has to answer." We answered. "Nothing else matters," she smiled faintly. "And you risked everything for a species that once feared you." "Why?" Marcus considered her question. "Because no one else would. Because someone had to. And because sometimes the universe needs monsters on the right side." Back in the human camp, soldiers shared quiet moments among themselves. Some laughed, some treated wounds, some simply sat in silence. They were exhausted, yes, but proud. The galaxy might still call them monsters. The Zalari might have feared them at first. But now they were more than that. They were protectors, legends, and proof that strength, courage, and sacrifice could overcome fear and prejudice. Private Jackson looked up at the stars. "Captain, do you think they'll ever see us the way we really are?" Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Some already do. The rest will learn. We don't fight for their understanding. We fight because it is right. The rest comes later." The young soldier nodded, feeling a weight lift from his heart. For the first time, he believed in something bigger than survival. The idea that bravery, loyalty, and sacrifice could inspire others, even entire worlds. The months that followed were quieter but no less important. Humans helped the Zalari rebuild, but they also trained them. Not in strict formations, not in rigid rules, but in adaptability, courage, and creative problem-solving. They taught the Zalari that sometimes surviving meant improvising, risking, and standing firm when fear threatened to take hold. Every encounter, every shared victory, and every lesson strengthened the bond between the humans and the Zalari. The galaxy began to speak of it in hushed tones. The monsters of Earth answered a call no one else would. Finally, the day came when the human fleet prepared to depart. The Zalari gathered on the landing field, standing tall despite scars and loss, to say goodbye to those who had saved them. Marcus walked among the crowd, his soldiers following silently. Elder Rennell stepped forward, his crystal staff catching the sunlight. "Captain Marcus Hale, your people came when all others turned away. You have saved Zalara, and your courage will be remembered for generations. We called for heroes and the monsters of Earth came." Marcus inclined his head, humbled yet proud. "We did what was right. That is all anyone can ask." Vera added softly, "Your people are no longer monsters. You are legends, guardians, humans who fought for life, not glory, and changed the course of history." The crowd erupted in cheers. Children ran forward to touch the humans. Elders offered gifts of crystal and art, and the humans simply accepted, their presence quiet yet commanding respect. As the fleet lifted into the stars, Zalara stood stronger than before. The humans had left their mark, not just in battle, but in courage, hope, and inspiration. They had turned fear into admiration, distrust into gratitude, and myths of monsters into stories of heroism. Marcus Hale, aboard the Iron Fang, gazed at the planet shrinking below him. Somewhere in the galaxy, others would hear the story. Some would still fear humans. Some would still doubt them. But the truth was clear. When the call for help came, humans answered. They fought, they bled, and they protected. And in doing so, they became the monsters the galaxy had feared, and the heroes the universe desperately needed. The plea had gone out.